those of you just joining us online, you're watching Procurious Big Ideas Summit, broadcast from Zurich, right here in Switzerland. Our theme of today is Reach Your Summit, and we've had a fantastic lineup of speakers who are showing us how procurement and supply professionals can supercharge their careers and reach peak performance across a whole range of areas.
And we've now come to the final part of the day. So we've had a fantastic lineup of speakers talking about how procurement and supply professionals need to adapt and perish. With Elizabeth Schlag-Lawrence talking about shifting the procurement mindset, Michael Ploeger showing us how to win the procurement endgame with a big focus on digital transformation, and Bruce Morrison giving us some very practical tips on staying relevant in an ever-changing world. We've also discussed some of our latest research findings, along with interview compilations, on-the-couch insights, best of Procurious countdowns, and lots more. So if you've missed anything or want to share some of these insights with your friends and colleagues, you can check them out in the Procurious e-learning section, where they've been saved as short micro-learning videos.
So tell us about the final part of the day. What's in store?
We're rounding off the day with the theme, Live Your Best Life. So we talked earlier that a lot of people expect the profession to transform into a highly agile group of strategic thinkers who are business partners. Individuals don't have a lot of control over that overall professional transformation, but they do have control over their own career and what their own career transforms into. So the point that I want to make is that it's up to you to steer your career in a direction that will keep you motivated and inspired and fulfilled. And I'd argue that you're not going to get that by filling in spreadsheets. That's why the coming wave of automation is so exciting. Our research shows that on average, 49% of the procurement workload is regarded as tactical, and 42% is regarded as ripe for automation.
The big question is, what will procurement professionals do with their newly acquired time once AI takes over the tactical element?
I'm very glad you asked that question, Trish, because that gives me an opportunity to launch the fourth and final part of Procurious and Michael Page UK's 2030 report. So it's now available in the Procurement 2030 group on Procurious, along with parts 1, 2 and 3 as well. We'll put the link online now so listeners can get hold of their copy straight away. So let me spend a couple of minutes summarising this report. So we've called the first section Time Enough at Last, because it addresses the very question you just asked me a minute ago. What will procurement professionals spend more time on if or when the tactical elements of their role are automated? The top three answers are firstly, increasing procurement's influence in the wider organisation, followed by team and talent development, and in third place, we have seeking opportunities to contribute to top-line growth. These top three items on the wish list are really about adding value for the organisation, whether it's through making sure procurement is brought into the planning and strategy early on through its increased influence, or having a highly skilled team operating at peak performance, to breaking out of the cost savings mould and finding creative ways to contribute to top-line growth. You can see on this page that counterintuitively, people expect that more automation in the future will actually lead to more personal and human relationships with suppliers. That's a perfect example of technology enabling rather than replacing human skill sets, and speaks to a lot of Jürgen Nielis was saying at the very start of the day. There are two more findings I want to share from our Procurement 2030 Part 4 report. Firstly, we have a really interesting discussion about the need to rebrand procurement or not, particularly given the increasing rate of change for the profession. Just over 70% of people are happy to keep the term procurement and believe it's a strong brand that we continue to build upon. I know that Procurious founder Tanya Siri believes the same thing as well, but 30% wanting to change the term is still quite significant. I mentioned earlier on some of the great alternative names that our survey takers put forward, such as value creation officers, relationship management, and commercial consultants. Finally, we asked whether people expect that there'll be more or fewer procurement jobs available in 2030, given the ever-growing concern out there about jobs stealing AI and robots. The results were actually fairly evenly split. 36% believe there will be more procurement jobs, 41% expect there will be fewer, and nearly 25% expect there will be about the same amount. We asked a follow-up question: if you could time travel to the year 2030 but could only take 3 workplace skills, what would they be? And you can see the top 3 here are 1, critical thinking and problem solving, 2nd, relationship building, and 3rd, leadership. And this is really one of the main reasons Procurious and Michael Page UK put this report series together. People have limited time and budgets to develop their skills, so we wanted to point them towards the skills and attributes where it will really pay off if they concentrate on attaining peak performance in those areas. So what you really don't want to do is spend your valuable time and money training for a skill that is sure to be automated in the next 5 years, such as data collection or market research. As usual, there's heaps of other content in the report, including CPO, video interviews, and we've got blog articles, links to blog articles by Procurious and Michael Page UK. So be sure to get onto Procurious and download your copy today.
Let's now take a look at the speaker lineup for the final part of the day. Well, coming up next, we have Olinga Taid, Visiting Professor of Blockchain, Birmingham City University, who will be talking about using blockchain for social good, followed by Gilles Bro, Principal and Co-founder of the Beyond Group and an expert in business partnering, who will be presenting on the topic of how to make your stakeholders love you. And finally, Thierry Foston, a doctoral research and former procurement and supply chain optimization and transformation lead, whose session is called Maximize Collaboration, Drive Innovation.
And as with the other parts of the day, we've got plenty of other great content as well, including speaker interviews, Best of Procurious, and even a Christmas surprise starring yours truly.
So don't forget to get involved in Zurich Big Ideas Summit by sharing insights, making comments and asking questions. And you'll be in the running to win some fantastic prizes, a Paris Bebop 2 drone, along with a whole bunch of really cool prizes, including Patagonia t-shirts and a Falraven backpack. Help us spread the word too on Twitter and LinkedIn by using #BigIdeas2018.
And a reminder that all of the great content, including speaker presentations and interviews and other parts of content we've had today, are available in the Procurious e-learning library, saved as small micro-learning videos.
Hugo, you talked about some of the activities that procurement pros are likely to undertake in the future, and I believe social procurement was one of them.
Yes, actually we use the term sustainable procurement that's interchangeable with social procurement. It basically means anything that's part of procuring with purpose. So that might be green procurement or environmentally sustainable procurement, working with social enterprise, making sure you've got diversity across your supplier base. It falls really neatly into our topic here of living your best life, because not only is it increasingly important, it's also very satisfying work.
And now we'll cross back to the main stage to hear from Olinga Taid.
Frankly, procurement is at the same level in my eyes as auditing, accountancy, and that level of excitement. All right? Okay? Thank you. And I give it's like, there's more excitement in the hashtag birds aren't real. Check it out, all right? Because people believe in that with more emotion than this. And I was thinking, why is this, You were talking about medicine, because, when nobody grows up going, Mummy, one day I want to be a chief procurement officer, all right? Because you grow up wanting to do things which have real value in society. And by value, we mean things which to do with life, to do with sentiment. We want to change the world. We want to become a politician, etc., etc. Doctors, they save one life at a time. In procurement, we can save or kill thousands by one decision. When you say, I will knock off 3% of my supply chain budget, somewhere in that chain, some people will enter into slavery conditions. Some people may die. When we go, oh, I love my iPhone, isn't it pretty? We now know 32 commit suicide manufacturing it every year in China. 800 people might burn up in a fire making clothes for a supplier, for a company. And we only hear about that because it's in the news, but all the people who suffer. So in procurement, we have the power of life and death. And that is a major responsibility. And I want to show you how you have the power to change the world. I honestly believe procurement has the greatest power to change the world. You see, I started in this whole process after retirement thinking, I had a vision back in 2011, which was I wanted structures that can change the world. And I had this idea that I could do something good, I could get rewarded, boop, on my mobile phone, a credit. I could go to Starbucks and go, give me $10 coffee, and they go, here's $8 for the coffee, $2 using my social credit. I wanted to use my values as procurement, because in our own lives, that's what we do, isn't it? Outside our jobs, we use our values to procure things. We go, that car makes me feel empowered, that dress makes me feel sexy, that house makes me feel good, makes me happy. We talk about our feelings. When we go into procurement, we just strip it out, don't we? We completely strip out our values. So I wanted to pay using my goodness in Starbucks. I wanted to go down Google Street and go, I'll shop here, not here, because this is made from a company which are good people, would treat the staff well, and this company are complete bastards, etc., etc. I will buy this coffee, I will buy this ice cream made by happy cows in a happy field with happy children, and this is made through modern slavery. I don't want to sit in a leather seat if I know 3 people die making it, right? Because that's the leather industry, by the way. So I wanted to use our values as a mechanism for procurement, just as I do it in my own life, as you all do in your own lives. And the only thing that has allowed that to happen for us is using something called blockchain. So I want you to kind of ignore the frenetic video, but I want to just talk about the processes. So the first thing is blockchain has the ability to actually put on a distributed ledger publicly the entire supply chain. We all know the financial value of a product goes like this, and people add products to it and goes to the consumer, then you pay 2,000 quid for Louis Vuitton, and then it goes to a landfill. It's a curve. But the non-financial value, that might have been a living animal, right? You kill a crocodile at the age of 2 years. It could live to 40 because the skin is great at 2. So the non-financial value, people will fall in a vat making leather products because it's always the case. It's a physical process. So the non-financial, it fluctuates. And blockchain puts into a ledger that entire supply chain so that at the point of sale, just as I see calories, I can decide to buy it or not to buy it. It gives you a choice to buy based on the values of the supplier. You have the choice. It doesn't mean you have to go for, people still go, I love my shiny iPhone, don't they? It doesn't matter how many people die, I still love my shiny iPhone. But at least we have a choice, just as we have in calories, et cetera, et cetera. And in the same way, an AI can replace then our boring parts of our jobs in procurement. An AI can say not Siri or flipping Alexa, what's the weather in Zurich. It can say, these are my values, go and find me products that are aligned to my values. Find me things which are aligned to my values. Do not pick companies or suppliers where I know environmentally it isn't good or whatever. And today, I may be less aligned. Tomorrow, I could be more aligned. I could be aligned to my father's values. Tell me what Superman would choose today. You can be a superhero, as you said. And then I can go to payment. If you're in Starbucks right now, Starbucks went through a huge racial issue in the past 6 months. So if I go and try and pay with my black coin, cryptocurrency, I will get 30% discount. If I go and play with my KKK coin, they'll go, this week is not aligned to our values. And this stuff happens every day. When you look at NRI, the National Rifle Association, we were giving 20%, 30% discounts to NRI members for years. It didn't matter when children died in playgrounds. But now, because of social media, it changed that. And suddenly, all that discount is gone. Procurement has changed. Companies stepped back. Airlines said, no, you're not giving me a discount. Rent cars, Hertz said, we're not giving you a discount. Our procurement changed. A company can decide, dependent on its corporate drivers or its corporate values, you can procure against those values. You say, I will use those values. It's for me to buy products from suppliers that are aligned to those values. I can even, using blockchain, determine how, let's say 5% are based on tokens which push values and 95% on cash to ensure that supplier actually meets the values of the corporate. Equally, the supplier can say, I will not want a woman's coin. I do not want my token of value to be used to buy arms. And that's what blockchain can do. It can say, it can program in the token digitally where the values through something called a smart contract, which I can talk about later if there's time. And then let's go even further. So this is a vision for 2030, isn't it? These are like the SDG goals of 2030, which is, United Nations. I want to be in a state, and I believe at 2030, we will be able to transact love for a building, happiness for gold. There are now exchanges which are bigger than Deutsche Bank based on this. There's one called Binance in blockchain, started a year ago, 5 staff. It's 200 staff now, 1 billion profit, bigger than Deutsche Bank in cryptocurrency. And they exchange fiat and other currencies for each other. And they exchange, it was in Switzerland where I learned I could exchange tokens of social impact for art, for gold, for land. In fact, it was in this very hotel. The last time I was in this hotel, I met a lady who invests between 3 and 8 million a month in blockchain. She invested in a company downstairs, 3 million in 30 minutes. And I listened to her, and I was just aghast. And I thought, this is just madness. But in that same sentiment that she used to do that, she is 19% of the biggest software company for banking, back office banking, and 20% of one of the biggest energy providers in the world. Because she felt, right? She gets it wrong 99 times. We manage her money, but now she gets it right the times it counts. So blockchain is a new instrument, and it has many facets, but I wanted to give you a vision of what 2030 will look like. Because my honest belief is that procurement will be the single largest instrument in the world to change the world. So that when mummy says, mummy, children will say, I want to be a procurement officer, because they will want to change the values of the world. What we buy, what we eat, what we sell, the values with which we transact. And procurement can enable to do that. And I believe it's in the power of everyone. Right now, we have a path to go, but in my belief, blockchain and part AI will change that process dramatically.
I just think this is such a refreshing way to think about blockchain. I mean, often when we talk about blockchain, it's about making money through Bitcoin, or we talk about the importance of cybersecurity, or those other aspects that are a bit more sort of transactional and on the technology side. But really talking about procurement with purpose is really a topic that's close to our heart. So let's cross over to our content writer, Laura, to find out more about what we've written on this topic on the Procurious blog.
Hi, I'm Laura, content writer at Procurious. Everyone is talking about blockchain, including us. Here are some of our top blogs which explore how blockchain is impacting the procurement profession. We make it simple in Back to Blockchain Basics, explaining how it works, when it will hit the mainstream, and how Bitcoin fits in. What is blockchain? How can it impact your organisation and help establish trust? Bertrand Multiverne outlines 4 reasons for procurement to back blockchain. Michael Shaw warns that blockchain won't wait for you to be ready for it in the impact of blockchain on procurement. The recent cases of tragic deaths caused by food allergies has opened afresh the debate on fully transparent supply chains. Food allergy deaths avoidable with blockchain explores how the technology could prevent future fatalities. Blockchain hype has spread like wildfire, but it might be time for a reality check. Bertrand Multiverne argues that blockchain will not save the world, at least not this year.
I'm now joined by Olinga Taid. Good to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
How did your presentation go?
Very good. Procurement itself, let's face it, isn't something that's going to light the world. Currently, it's the same as actuators and actuaries and accountants and auditors, but I believe procurement will be the new instrument in 2030 to change the world. And I wanted to tell them that, and that was the key message, and I think it was delivered.
Tell me how to stay motivated when a work-related issue just seems too big to overcome.
Okay, well, I take everything back to my own lives. In our own lives, again, back to what Procurious is doing. In our own lives, we use procurement and we use our sentiment and our feelings to change our decisions. We say, I love what I'm doing, my house, I'm buying that house, it makes me happy. These clothes make me feel empowered, this car, etc. But yet when we go into the work environment, we cut our sentiment right out. We completely close down how we feel. And yet the decisions we are making can affect thousands of people, like modern slavery, like iPhone procurement. So I think if you bring your own self into your job, it can make the difference. You align those values.
You've had an incredibly varied career. Tell me how you get that work-life balance right and how can it lead to peak performance, getting it right?
Well, Trish, I wish I could say that it was because I'm so smart, but it isn't. Most of my life, I have got the balance wrong. And in any kind of capital industry, you're going to have lots of grief in your personal life and divorces and things like this, and I had more than my fair share. But I was fortunate where things were brought to me, interventions were brought to me, and in my case, my daughter had 2 breakdowns in 2008. She hears voices 24/7, and that changed my life. And I realized the process I was undertaking before in business, which was what I thought was great for business, was actually inadequate for personal life, but also inadequate in the future of business and for a world of 2030.
The topic of the summit today is peak performance. What are the main factors that would contribute towards career advancement in procurement?
I think on-the-job performance and your professional network are equally important. One cannot survive without the other. You need both to succeed, and that's what our responders also felt. One of the key things is that even the most ambitious and smart people within an organization, even if they perform really well on their job, they cannot really succeed without a good professional network. So they both need to go hand in hand.
Okay.
I love my job. I, every day, get to talk about love, about transacting love and happiness and hope. What's there not to like? It's just from years of giving commands to now talking about things that matter. It's the best job in the world.
What inspires you most about your job?
Oh, meeting all the people and learning and just the endless growth I find absolutely fascinating.
Well, I meet a lot of people, and I think that's really what inspires me. I meet lots and lots of intelligent people that are doing great stuff in procurement, and it's always great to communicate and talk with them.
It's relations, collaboration across all the company internally and then externally. That really motivates me a lot.
Again, that's about working with the team on maybe a bit disruptive ideas, changing things to the best of the overall company, bringing people together across the different boundaries of the organization and also with the suppliers. Yeah.
I love making an impact. I love making a difference. And in procurement, you really get to make a difference to your business.
What inspires you most about your job?
The impact on both the top and the bottom line is, for me, very motivating. I wouldn't want to work for an organization that's only interested in savings. Having the opportunity to grow the organization is also fantastic.
It's that I can do new things every day. It's little repetitive. It's tiring sometimes, but it's never boring.
What inspires me about my job is the fact that I can really bring a change, bring an impact to the company by increasing the company profitability, for example, providing innovative ideas, way of dealing with some issues.
I like to drive value. I like to deliver value that contributes to an organization's success. Procurement is is an entity that I've been part of for the last 20 years, and it's going through a phenomenal amount of change. It's tremendously exciting to be part of that.
You talked earlier about future-proofing procurement skill set on the cusp of the robotic era.
Yes, absolutely. So to reach your career summit, you're going to have to be really strategic about the skills that you focus on, especially on the cusp of the robotic era, where you're going to have to focus on some particular human skills that will help you beat the bots. And business partnering is one of those skills at the moment where we hold, the humans hold a real advantage over AI and robots for the foreseeable future anyway.
Well, now we're going to cross back to the main stage for our second last presenter of the day, our relationship expert, Gilles Bro, who will be presenting on how to make your stakeholders love you.
I'm going to talk about how to make your stakeholders love you, but really, I'm not going to take credit for that title. Actually, this is around business partnering. And our view of business partnering is sort of be a business partner or be out of business. And that's really what we want to talk about. So let me start talking about something that we as an organization do. One of the things that we do is called think tanks. Every year we gather about 15 companies together and we take a particular topic in procurement. Typically the people that join us are procurement executives. We take a topic, we drill down into that topic over the course of about 3 meetings, about 4.5 days. And we really try to drill into that topic. And out of that, we try to get useful insights, some models and tools that people can really take away and use something out of that think tank. And we've been doing this for 6 years. And several years ago, a topic that came up, in fact, the membership asked us, and they said, look, you keep telling us that the world of procurement is changing. What are the skills and capabilities we need to be a new procurement executive? What's the CPO of the future actually look like? So we're going to start talking about, here's our picture of the typical CPO of the future. I apologize, it's a male figure, but you'll understand why it's a male figure going on. Next time we'll use another one. At any rate, what did we learn out of our think tanks? And we learned a couple of things. One, the CPO of the future has to think with his head. That means he is the CEO of his own business. And very often, as a CPO, you act like the CPO of your suppliers. Number two, he has to lead with his heart. That means to appear to be trustworthy and balanced. Third, you have to lead with your hands. That means you have to have credible experience and knowledge about specific actions, or rather specific issues within your own companies, and have specific skills. And lastly, you have to lead with your guts. And what that means to us is something about being able to take on manageable risks, and something we think is very important, and that is don't ask for permission. That you lead your business. You truly lead your business. Once you add the sort of digital kind of perspective to that, what do you get? You get this notion of aligning to your company's digital objectives. It's the notion around making sure that your stakeholders, your users, get a vastly improved experience. It's about making, It's about making sure that your stakeholders and the process that you drive is highly efficient. And out of that process, you actually get better insights to make better decisions. Ultimately, that turns you into what we call the Incredible Hulk of procurement. The bottom line here is take a look at the things up there that talk about the kinds of things procurement people need in the future. I don't see negotiation up there. I don't see managing contract terms up there. I don't see bid management up there. In fact, as we got deeper and deeper into this topic, and we brought experts into it. We brought executive recruiters, we brought consulting companies, we brought academicians into it. We brought in a very broad base of people to talk about this, and the skills that to be the next procurement guy, the next individual that leads a procurement function, guess what? Those old skills aren't there. So as we did this, the very next thing that came out of this was a client came to us and said, great, what is all this stuff? We said, you know what it really is? It's something that we've been running around the topic today, all today. It's business partnering. It's about you being part of that business, you being a business partner. And so what did they ask us? They said, great, now I got it, it's business partnering. Well, what is business partnering? And so this individual, this company asked us and said, if you guys were to describe what a business partnering program is, what would that be? Now, we didn't have a business partnering program. It wasn't part of our offering, at least at the time. But we sat down, we thought, what is business partnering all about? What are the set of skills? Somehow it embodies those skills, but let's see if we can try to codify it. And we then went out and we said, okay, what do other organizations in the world call business partnering? And so I'm going to describe for you what we think our business view of business partnering is for procurement organizations. And then I'll make a final comment around how that differs from what we see out in the marketplace. And there's a key part of that because we think business partnering is a journey. Business partnering is not one thing, but it's a journey that builds on several things. It builds on lots of pieces. The first is you got to have some kind of burning platform. There's got to be an impetus to say that I need to change what I do as an organization. The same old thing, doing the same old thing is not what I'm going to continue to do, and therefore I have to do something else. What's the first step in business partnering? Well, it's understanding your stakeholders. That's the first thing. Business partnering doesn't start somewhere else as an end point. It starts with understanding what your stakeholders actually want. Second thing, what's that? Well, the very next thing is you understanding who you are, how you like to work, and how your team likes to work. So now I understand my stakeholders, I understand what my team does. What next? Well, it's combining that and building a brand. Building a brand. What does your organization deliver, and how do you express that to the rest of the world? Now that I understand what my stakeholders want, I understand the kind of organization I am, I understand exactly what my brand is, what do I need to do? I need to solve someone else's problems. That's what really business partnering is about. The fundamental issue is, can I solve someone else's problem and help them solve that problem? And lastly, it's around engagement. It's around persuasion. It's around influence. And that's the problem with every other business partnering program that we have seen in the market. And why other people, frankly, don't get this notion of what business partnering actually is. They start at the end. They start at the end and say business partnering is all about influencing and engagement. It's not. It's about taking a journey through this process that helps you get to that point where you're actually able to influence an important individual in the organization or an important function. I'm going to talk through those 5 things now. So this first thing around stakeholder management. What's the tool that you would use for stakeholder management? Well, guess what? You'd probably suggest something like, I'm going to do a stakeholder map. How many have done stakeholder maps here? Wow, everybody's done a stakeholder. They're really good, aren't they? And then what'd you do? Then you created a communication plan. How am I going to talk to those people at one end of the stakeholder? Yeah, exactly. Forget it. Doesn't work. Because that's what everyone does with it. There's a way to use a stakeholder mapping program to actually look for lines of leverage within the organization. And that's the strategic and tactical use of a stakeholder map. Really to understand who are the people. Who said find your friends? I think it was you, Jürgen, this morning. It's about finding your friends in the organization and using that line of leverage effectively to drive understanding not only what your stakeholders want, but answering their need. What's the next session? Knowing yourself and the team. We use something called the Game Changer Index. And I can talk all day long about Game Changer Index. A Game Changer Index is really, what it does is it focuses on how you like to deliver success to your organization. And most importantly, it's about how your team likes to deliver success to the organization. So we use this as a tool to understand, well, I got stakeholders over here. My team delivers success this way. Now what do? I take the next step and I go into that brand building. And brand building is about what? It's not just about a message. Well, we do some messaging. We think about what messages you have to send. But what is a brand? Anyone actually, I'm going to describe it in layman's term. I'm sure you can go to any marketing book and find a better description. But a brand is the sum total of what other people think of you. That's your brand. Your brand is what others perceive you to do and what you can deliver. So it's forming that brand is not something you do instantly, but it's something that you can actually tailor and create a very specific picture of what your brand actually is. After branding, what's problem solving? We use some problem solving tools. By the way, who has done lean tools in the group? Okay, horrible, aren't they? It takes me 6 years to figure out what problem I have and another 6 years to tell people that they got a problem, and maybe sometime later I can actually focus on solving it for them. Okay, some of those tools actually have value. I'm just kidding. But the fact of the matter is there's a couple of tools that you can use that can help you solve someone else's problem. And that's what the tool use is all about. You helping to solve someone's problem. And once they recognize that, then you become a very engaged partner. And the last thing is around engaging and influencing. We use something we call the PACE model. And it's really a very quick tool that you can use to really help you understand what are the tools I have when I try to influence an organization or an individual. And again, this is where most business partnering programs get a little bit backwards. This is where they start off. And we think your business partnering program actually is a set of foundations on top of which sits influencing and engaging. So, I'm talking fast and I'm wrapping it up. So, what's the program? The foundation. It's a foundation program, and it starts off with understanding your stakeholders. It's an understanding of knowledge of self and teams, where we use the game changer profile. It's about understanding about building a brand, how you construct that, how you communicate that brand. It's about understanding exactly problem-solving tools so you can help solve people's problems. And ultimately, it's something that I've mentioned. It's around creating influence. It's around influencing people, but it's also, and it's not around persuasion. It's around influencing people so they recognize that you are solving not only your problems, but their problems at the same time, and for which we use the PACE model. So, excuse me, that's our view of business partnering. That's in principle all I have planned to talk to you about.
So when it comes to stakeholder engagement and communication, I've got to quote Procurious founder Tanya Siri, who talks a lot about the Disney marketing formula, which is the book, the movie, the merchandise, and the ride. Essentially, the book is your business case. It's a proposal or argument for action, and it needs to be rock solid and definitely needs to meet your organization's requirements. But not everyone will have time to read your business case, which is where the movie comes in. Think about some of the lengthy classics that Disney has converted into film. Whether it's The Hunchback of Notre Dame or Treasure Island, their screenwriters managed to bring these stories down to an average of 90 minutes. Look at ways to condense your business case into a snappy executive summary. We all know that Disney does an incredible job of licensing their characters and churning out the merchandise, but procurement is notoriously poor at marketing itself internally. We're not saying that to order a range of paperweights or mouse pads to promote your brand, but it might be worth thinking up a logo or effective slogan that encapsulates your message. And finally, the ride is all about repetition. You simply have to keep repeating your message until it's absorbed. But you don't necessarily need it to repeat it through the same channel over and over. Mix things up with different platforms, whether it's email or the social media or the intranet in your company or even wall posters on the office wall.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the e-learning content on the site? What kind of training videos can people watch?
We have a number of courses in the e-learning section on Procurious. If you're interested in understanding the role of procurement, knowing what fundamental skills you need within the industry, and want to be able to identify key business factors that affect procurement, you can learn all about this in our courses on the e-learning section.
I'm now joined by Gilles Briel. Gilles, great presentation. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me what the number one factor is that holds people back from reaching the summit, reaching peak performance.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of pieces to that answer, but the first thing, I think there's a personal piece of that, and part of that is understanding how you contribute to an organization. And everyone probably has something that is their unique thing that blocks them from achieving peak performance. Understanding that is really critical. I know for myself, I have a tendency to focus on things that are urgent, but maybe not important. And so every day when I think about what I'm going to do and what I'm going to try to achieve, I think about making a contribution, at least one thing per day, about something that is going to make an important contribution to what I want to achieve. And then knowing that I'm going to have to do a lot of little urgent stuff as well.
Now, as I've just said, today is about reaching the summit. Yeah. How do you know when you've reached the summit of your career?
Yeah. Well, I think ambitious and motivated people actually never know that they have reached the summit of their career. I think they are always believing that there is something more to do. And perhaps you only know that you've reached the summit in retrospect. But I would also make one more caution about that. The journey is not to reach some place which you call the summit. The journey is the journey. You should be reveling in the fact that you are going down a journey towards whatever your goal is, and you should not only be enjoying that, but building and continuing to develop in that process.
Wise words, Gilles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nora, content writer at Procurious. Let's check out some of our most popular blogs on supplier relationship management. Critical Factors When Selecting Your Suppliers by Ewan Granger explores how the criteria by which procurement pros select their suppliers has changed over time. In 5 Best Negotiation Scenes on Film and TV, Hugo Britt shares everything he's learned about supplier negotiation from the movies. 8 Critical Actions for Managing Your Supplier Pool by Louis Gilles gives some top tips on how to actively manage your supplier pool. In 6 Ways to Prevent a Negotiation Blow-Up, we advise how procurement professionals can maintain good relations with their suppliers during tense negotiations. And finally, Hugo Britt takes guidance from Hugh Grant, Will Ferrell and Homer Simpson in how not to break up with your suppliers.
Man, squeezing is such an emotionally loaded term. I think it's really more about being tough but fair. That's a more objective standard.
Well, I think it depends on what you want from your suppliers. If you're just looking to them to be a supplier, then perhaps you should. If you're looking to them to be a partner, then obviously you're thinking about the future and you want them investing in some of the innovation that will drive greater value for you down the road. So right now in our industry, we've been commoditized to some extent and we still have to find a way to innovate. And the client still wants you to bring greater value, but they're going too hard on the price, in my opinion. So I would say you absolutely have to zoom out and look at the total value that you're going after and classify is this going to be a partner or a commoditized.
I think it's important that corporations don't squeeze you for every dollar because you also want to think about the quality and you don't want to run businesses out of business. You're not in the business for running others out of business. So again, think of the quality.
Yep. What's wrong with procurement squeezing suppliers for every cent they've got? Of course, I know the politically correct answer, but I think it's important that procurement doesn't move away from its core offering, which is delivering savings for the organisation. I mean, imagine if our HR people said we're not going to do recruitment interviews anymore, or the finance team said we're not doing the books anymore. This is part of our core being, so let's not shy away from savings.
You have to have a great relationship with your suppliers, one where they benefit and you benefit, so them making a profit and you finding value in their solutions is the right balance.
If you value suppliers for more than the cost of the item or services they provide you, then you cannot squeeze them for every single thing they got.
I'm a supplier, don't do it to me. Because you don't get a good partnership. And I think in my own company, have always prided ourselves on having good partnerships and relationships because it makes our life easier, honestly.
And now for something a little bit different. We're delighted to bring you a Christmas poem on the very topic of workplace automation, written by my favourite co-host, Hugo Britt. Now, for those of you who love Dr. Seuss as much as I do, you might remember the Grinch who tried to steal Christmas from the Who's in the town of Whoville. So let's let a little bit of Christmas magic in.
Every Who down in Whoville liked working a lot, until one day the boss met a clever robot. It was sleek and terrific, with shining chrome knees, and could do the work of 15 FTEs. The boss called upon her executive team and said with a grin that was grinchy and mean, "We'll buy 10 of these robots. That's 150 Who's off the payroll. Won't that be thrifty?" The head of HR gave a horrified gasp. "But the timing," he said. "It's a bit much to ask your Who's to take a redundancy now. It's Christmas next week and there'll be a huge row." The boss's brow wrinkled, her face set in a leer. "All right," said she. Here's another idea. We'll bring the bots in, my decision is set, but we won't dump the who's for a little while yet. They can work side by side for 2 weeks or more, and come New Year's Day, they're right out the door. The very next day, when the who's came to work, they marched through the door and then stopped with a jerk, for sitting there, gleaming, daunting and massive, at the end of 10 desks was a robot, impassive. And then when the who's all cried out, "What's the deal?" they were shocked when the robots replied with this spiel. "We're your new metal workmates. We're starting today. We're cognitive, clever and can dance a ballet. We'll work round the clock and charge not a cent. The ROI on us is 10,000%. The who's stomped at once to the head of HR, seen dimly through the haze of his half-smoked cigar. "What's with the robots? Workmates indeed. You're going to replace us. They work twice our speed." The head of HR, while stroking his beard, assured them it wasn't so bad as they feared. "They're just here to assist. Fear not for your jobs. Robots are the future. Stop being such snobs. You're quite safe for now, so help them on board, and we'll have another discussion moving forward." 2 weeks passed quite quickly. The new year dawned bright. The boss checked her calendar and smiled in delight. "Today I'll cut costs in a manner abundant. I'll tell 150 who's they're redundant." She leapt to the lift and pressed second floor, preparing to show all non-robots the door. But when she arrived, she received a surprise at the hustle and bustle before her 2 eyes. The head of the who's leapt straight to his feet and said, "Thanks for the robots, they're totally neat. We worried they would steal all our careers, but now it turns out these were unfounded fears. We no longer need to do tactical chores, mind-numbing spreadsheets and other such bores. These robots are handling all of those tasks. Now we have time to be strategic at last." The head of HR stepped forward then. "It's true. These robots are great, but your humans are too. They're thinking new thoughts. They're stepping outside the box we created with the tactical side. Innovation is up. Relationships too. Soft skills are unlocking new value for you. These who's are terrific. We never foresaw that with time on their hands, they could do so much more." The boss raised her voice to address the whole throng. She shouted aloud, "It turns out I was wrong. I thought that these bots would make you inessential. Instead, they've unlocked your hidden potential. So just let me wish you a most festive season, secure in your jobs and having new reason to be joyful about this happy Yuletide. Humans and robots at work, side by side."
Oh, thanks, Hugo. That was fantastic and certainly a great way to tell a story. But now we're about to go to our final speaker for the day. But first, get excited because we're going to reveal the winner of the Parrot Bebop 2 drone in the Zurich Big Ideas Summit group on Procurious. A huge congratulations to our very lucky winner. We will be in touch to get your mailing address and we wish you hours and hours of fun flying that very cool drone around. Enjoy. So now we go back to the main stage for our very final presentation of the day, Thierry Faustin, who'll be talking about how collaboration leads to innovation.
So, yeah, the topic now, we've been just speaking about internal business partnering. I'm going to talk about external collaboration. And external collaborations, everybody knows how to do that. It's very easy. Just what you do is you go and talk to people, essentially. We all know how to build external relations. Very easy, talk to them. And then build trust, sign contracts, and everything's fine. The big issue that you find in this approach is that everybody avoids 2 things, risks and attribution. These are 2 elements that no one wants to really discuss about. You want to collaborate with me, and then, as I am the buyer, I'm giving you all the risk. And then I take all the benefits. It just doesn't work. It can't work. Because if you want to collaborate with someone, especially when you want to get innovation and say, "Hey, suppliers, come with your innovation. We are going to do business together, and I'm going to get all the profits, and you are going to keep all the risks." It just doesn't work. It's the same also internally. It's the same with you as an employee. If you are just being given all the risk of, hey, be innovative, take risks, but if it fails, poof, I get you out of the organization because you failed. It will not work. And that's a key element in literature, and I'm talking about research here, but also talking about experience in business. so many times you are faced into this triangle of impossibility. So you end up taking either personal risks, which means you may be asked to go and provide your services to your current competitors, or you just become a star because you took risk and it worked. And the same issue goes internally when you say, hey, we as procurement have this super project, we want to be digital. We want to be doing this or that, and then who is funding? And no one wants to fund because it's risky. However, everybody will want to accept rewards for that. And if I take an example, a few years ago I was in the automotive industry and we were developing a new braking system. It was a super challenge for the organization because it was our first business with the company that at this time was #1 in the world as car manufacturer. So super visible, super important. We had taken the business on a challenge that we were able to develop something very with a very high level of performance that would be also, we had to make it cheaper than we had the habit of doing. And so it somehow came down to engineering and procurement. At this time, what I offered was to say, okay, we are going to really integrate suppliers in the development of new products. So we thought at what we could do, and we said there are two things we can do. One, redesign, which we can do. We have some technical option. And the second one is we are going to remove some metal parts and put some plastic parts. Reaction, the first guy to kill us was a sales manager. I'm not going to see the customer with a plastic component in a braking system. Never ever been done. The only one that tried failed. So we ended up talking to the engineering guy, and he said, you know, what I want to deliver is a product that works. So there is no way I'm going to take any risk in developing something that might not work. So with the engineering manager of the project, we said, okay, we are going to make it do. We are going to, within the same budget, so we're taking the risk, develop something in metal and something in plastic. Which put me into an interesting situation because I had to talk to suppliers saying, guys, I would like you to develop something with us. I have zero money. So the first answer was like, yeah, as usual. But what do we do when it succeeds? I'm like, yeah, if it succeeds, you will just have the business, and it's a 1.5 million cars platform every year for the next 5 years, sure, probably next 10 years. And so one company said, yes, one. Okay, and so we developed, we worked. Everything went hectically, as in any development. And at the end, we got the product. It was 20% lighter, 25% cheaper. And then the sales guy and the engineering director came back to me and said, can you just get rid of the supplier who did the development because I'm sure you can find cheaper. I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. However, I don't take the risk of giving a new component to a new supplier 2 months before start of production. No way. So you just are going to take the results as they are today. And interestingly, they were not willing to take the risk either. So the big discussion we had after was, who gets the reward of the work? Could we just say the engineering team did a good work and procurement did a good work? That was another big discussion. Because yes, we could show savings, wahoo, nice. On the other hand, we had an impact on the manufacturing line because you can't assemble components the same way when they're in plastic or when they're in metal. So it came to a lot of discussions internally. And the resolution was, we are going to say that was a combined effort led by engineering. Okay, why not? For me, what was most important is we had demonstrated internally that collaboration with suppliers was possible. And we had also demonstrated to the suppliers that if you develop things with us, you get some business. You know, and we closed this triangle of accepting risk and attribution of benefits. Interestingly, this was the end of external collaboration in this company. Because on the side, another team of engineers was developing a different product, And they were just like, we are going to just show we can do it. But so, that was the dark side of the story, because every story has a dark side. But I think it was very, very interesting reflex from a group of people to say, we don't want to be outsourced, essentially. When the thing was, we were not outsourcing development, we were insourcing resources, which is a job of procurement. Procurement is all about getting resources from outside, bringing them in, because these are competencies and what I call resources in general that we don't have. And if we can do it somehow for free, with a good outcome, there is no reason not to do that. But so coming back on collaboration, so this you have to close this triangle. And that's very, very important, because when you want to jump into collaborative relationship management, that's where you have to link what the book says, and that's usually a big hurdle. You know, general terms and conditions, contracts, rules, regulation, supplier code of conduct, SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley does the same thing, and all of that. How do you make sure that having to follow all these rules, and I don't even talk about objectives, you know, how much do you deliver? Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to partner with business, yes, yes, yes. You always have someone saying, how much do you deliver? How do we work to be on the right-hand side of the smiley face saying, yes, we've been doing a new way and different way of managing and collaborating. I hate the word supplier relationship management, even though it's on my thesis profile so far. I'm working very, very hard to get rid of it because I want to just go to, it's really collaborative relationship management. It's really the most important thing there. And to do that, you have to approach two aspects, which are very important. First, understand the qualitative assessment. How do you qualitatively assess relationships? And this is a very hard part because you don't measure it. By definition, it's qualitative. So a lot of people shy away from it. Still, you have to really look into it. And qualitative assessment of relations is really about the adoption of practices. You can always say, yeah, I can measure how many people talk to the suppliers and so many times internally. Yeah, but really think about it. It's a change of behaviors. This is a qualitative aspect of collaboration management. What are the new behaviors that people have adopted? And then you have the somehow easy to measure quantitative aspect, which is about incentive, which is about attribution, which is about how many times we've signed contracts, how many times we've respected the contract. How many times did we share information? Because this is also a key thing. If you want to collaborate with suppliers or even internally, you have to share information. How do you want a supplier to come to you with an innovative idea when he doesn't know what you may be interested in? If you don't go out, and on another project a few years ago, I was on the supply market, which I didn't know. It was for me a completely different world in the pharma industry. I was like, that's my strategy, that's what I want to do. Who wants to play with me? Interestingly, everybody wanted to play with me. On the one hand, I had some interesting business. On the other hand, they knew what we wanted to do. They knew where we were going, and they knew that if they were playing along, there would be business. So share information. That's really critical to make sure that people want to collaborate with you. The other aspect is when you design your relationships, be very careful. A lot of programs about relationship management, about collaboration, are extremely structured, which means you are putting constraints. If you introduce rigidity, first of all, you kill innovation. Innovation comes from things being done differently, from interaction, from change. So if you want to innovate in a tunnel, if you have a round tunnel, you are going to come back with something that's round. If you have a square tunnel, it will be square. So be very careful. When you manage relationships, do not over-engineer, do not over-design your approach to the market and to the collaboration. Similarly, don't under-engineer it. Because if it's too loose, if it's too free-falling, yeah, then you lose a lot of opportunities and you introduce a lot of risks. And risks, you have to manage them, you have to take control of them. You have to know the ones you accept, you have to know the ones you don't accept. So in this aspect, when I hear about digitization, automation, yes, it will work for a number of things. However, I'm convinced that, as we've been discussing, and I was very interested all day long, because everyone, we come back to, it's a human-to-human interaction. Mm-hmm. You want to create a cushion around it. You want to create boundaries. You want to create security and safety for everyone. But you are a human-to-human interaction. As Gilles presented, people have hearts, people have guts. Yeah, people have hands, they can do things. They also have brains. Tell them what they can do. Tell them what you expect from them. Tell them what you can't accept from them. And they will just play along. It's very difficult, however. Very, very difficult to be clear and concise and to clearly express what you expect and what you want. Especially when the world is ever changing. Especially when you don't exactly know what your boss wants, because he's not super clear about it. Because a lot of companies think and behave saying, if you don't know everything, I have power over you, because I control information. And this is a very, very tricky part. So in collaborative relationship management, be careful, take time, speak to people. The more you talk in a meaningful way, okay, but the more you talk, the more you exchange information, the more you take time to bring ideas together, the more opportunities and the more success you will have in following the book, somehow making sure the risks that your organization doesn't accept are not materialized, and making your stakeholders happy, internally and externally.
Thank you, Thierry, for that fascinating presentation. So digital tools can be incredibly helpful in helping with collaboration, especially in modern workplaces where remote teams are really spread around the globe. We've got tools like Yammer, Slack, Microsoft Teams, even Facebook for Business, and they're all incredibly helpful. But our research actually found that online collaboration could be a lot better. So let's cross to my colleague Abby, who has some findings of this to share with us.
Do you think that true collaboration is still possible while working remotely? Do you have any statistics you can share with us?
No, I personally think it's definitely possible, but just to give you some data, 19% of our responders report excellent collaboration even with their remote employees. About 18% say they don't really collaborate, and 8% say they don't even know who the remote employees are. But at the end of the day, given the highest statistics were in favor of collaboration, there's no two ways about it. Teams are going more remote. Work-life balance is increasing through remote work. And I think it definitely is something organizations would have to give a lot of attention to in the future.
Abby, thank you. I'm now joined by Thierry Forsten. Well done, great presentation.
Thank you.
What's your number one tip for staying motivated when a work-related issue just seems too big?
The first thing I would say, just take a break. Breathe, go for a coffee, and just think about the next thing you could do that's not related to that issue, that is just going to keep you motivated, because you can't just hang on something that's just, it's not right for you at the moment. So go on to the next thing, just next step.
Move on.
Kind of move on, but it's more than move on, it's just change your mind. It's not only just, it's not forget it. You should never forget it. Just come back to it, make sure it works. But it's really about take a break and find the next thing that's of interest to you and just do it now.
If you could excel at one skill or attribute, what would that be?
I think, having two hats there, the first one being in procurement and the second one being an academic. Storytelling is the one thing that I would really love to master. Pretty difficult. I'm not good at that, practicing a lot. That's also why I present sometimes. but it's really the one way where you can approach and engage stakeholders wherever they are, internally or externally. And when you want to share ideas or teach, it's also a very, very important skill.
Well, that's just about a wrap. I hope everyone watching online has found this day as valuable as I did. Over the course of today, we've learned how procurement professionals can reach their career summit through supplier innovation, collaboration, business partnering, unlocking the power of diversity, closing the gender gap, mastering the procurement and digital transformation endgame, driving social good with blockchain, shifting mindsets, and most importantly, staying relevant.
And a reminder that all the presentations and other content from today have been saved as micro-learning videos in the Procurious e-learning library. So if you'd like to share anything that you've seen with your network, simply grab the video link from the library. Also, Procurious and Michael Page's UK Procurement 2030 report part 4 is now available. So follow the link in the Zurich Big Ideas group on Procurious to download your copy now.
I'd like to thank all our speakers who joined us today and my colleagues in the Procurious team, Procurious founder Tanya Siri for thinking up this concept and making it happen, and of course you, Trish, for bringing a bit of glamour to this event.
And most importantly, I'd like to thank all the people who've tuned in online, and of course a big congratulations to all our prize winners throughout the day. I've certainly had a ball, and I'm looking forward to the next Procurious Big Ideas Summit.
See you next time.
Zurich.